And welcome back to Houston Newsmakers, where I'm joined this morning by Lisa Gonzalez, the president and CEO of the Houston Advanced Research Center. We'll be calling it HARC from this point on. And Bob Stokes, president of the Galveston Bay Foundation. Good to see you both again.
Good morning.
Hey, before we go any further, tell me the elevator speech you would tell somebody meeting for the first time about what your organization does.
Sure. HARC, we're a nonprofit organization located in the Woodlands, and our mission revolves around sustainability. So we do independent research on air, energy, water, and resilience issues.
And I'm guessing that segues, it goes right to what you do, doesn't
Absolutely.
it?
We're partners in a lot of things because we concentrate on water. Galveston Bay Foundation is a nonprofit conservation organization, and our mission is to preserve and protect Galveston Bay so that our kids and their kids can enjoy it just like we did today.
And we get a report card every year about what's going on. Let's talk about what's going on this year. There's obviously some big impacts that are making it a little bit different this year. What's going on this year we need to talk about?
Well, you know, we released the report card before Harvey visited us. So this year with the report card, the overall grade was a C, but it's going to be really interesting going into next year to see how the storm impacts some of those grades.
This whole challenge in terms of the Galveston Bay Foundation, what is the challenge in trying to get people to understand the importance of making sure Galveston Bay is vibrant?
Well, I mean, Galveston Bay is our biggest natural resource in our local area. You know, we don't have big mountains like, you know, Rocky Mountains. Galveston Bay is it. So it's a beautiful place that provides a lot of base for both recreational activities and also commercial activities. And it's a giant center, giant economic hub. We've got all the shipping and a petrochem. And so it's important for us to sort of invest back into Galveston Bay, not necessarily just take it for granted, but work to make sure we preserve it. Everybody wants clean water. Everybody wants a place to go fishing and swimming. And so that's what we're about.
So what difference does it really make, though? I mean, it looks good and all that kind of stuff. Is it really, you talk about sustainability, does it really impact us?
It certainly does. And, you know, as Bob said, Galveston Bay is a huge economic driver for the region. And one of the goals of the report card is to stress that importance of the Bay system to our regional economy and to the communities, even to those that don't just necessarily live or play right around the edges of the Bay, but to folks also out in Houston, Katy, the entire watershed. You
talked about the fact that you put out a report card before Harvey. One of the things, our good friends at NASA, they're very invaluable in a lot of different ways. One of the things they did was give us this view from space, which really shows the coloration going on there. This is Harvey's floodwaters going in there. Have you done measurements on what's happening with that, or can you just look at it and know it's not going to be good?
Well, when you see an image like that, you definitely know there is a tremendous amount of fresh water coming down from the river and bayou systems into the bay. And looking at some of the data that our partners around the region have been collecting, we've seen some really low salinities. In the days just after the storm, particularly in the lower bay around Galveston Island, we were seeing salinities of 3, when this time of year we would typically see salinities of around, you know, 20 to 30, that, you know, closer to seawater.
So, but in reality, we've got volunteer water quality monitors out there taking those samples, and so they're reporting back, absolutely, Galveston Bay is, certainly after the storm, it was more akin to a freshwater lake than it was to a big coastal saline body of water. And
how negative is that, and for how long does that typically take? Because we've had flood events before.
Yeah, so we had an immense amount of water come down to the Bay system, and you know, that's not necessarily a terrible thing, but it does impact certain species more than others. For instance, oysters. Oysters have really struggled over the last decade with a combination of drought back 5-10 years ago, and then the flooding we've had the last couple of years. Oysters will die if salinity levels get down to close to 0, and that's unfortunately what we've had in Galveston Bay. And you know, they're projecting somewhere between 25% and 60% of mortality for oysters in this year's crop, which will negatively impact the bay in a bunch of different ways, but also certainly impact the oystermen who make their living on harvesting Galveston Bay oysters.
What do you most want people to do? What steps would you want people to take, both of you?
Well, you know, there are a lot of ways to get involved around the region. Galveston Bay Foundation and others have a number of different programs where you can get involved in days out on the bay where you can help to restore some of these important habitats, whether it be oysters or wetlands. And then there are also just things people can do in their everyday lives in terms of, you know, the fertilizers and things like that that you put on your lawns. So there are a lot of small things that people around the region can do. And when you multiply that by almost 7 million people, that can be a huge impact.
Bob, last word?
Yeah, we had a great volunteer event just last weekend. We had over 100 volunteers out at Morgan's Point helping us pick up trash that had floated down to the bay. We picked up something like 4,000 pounds of trash with 100 volunteers just in a couple hours. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved.
And I'm going to put your information from both organizations on my Newsmakers page so people can contact you and get involved and get our bay vibrant again.
Absolutely.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you so much.